Hello, this is John Linneball, and I'm recording this video, Words for Main Idea SAT and ACT Reading Questions. I'm with John Linneball Tutoring, and my email is john.linneball.tutoring@gmail.com, and www.johnlinneball.com is my URL. Please see page 133 of Barron's new SAT 28th edition to see where I got the idea for this. It's the basis of this video. The first word I'd like to discuss with you is bolster. Bolster means to support. It provides support. You can think booster, like a booster seat that provides support to a little kid. You can bolster your argument with facts and logic, just like the booster seat boosts the little kid at the restaurant or in the car. Delineate and depict, those are both words that can mean literally drawing a picture or drawing a picture figuratively with words. So delineate, you can see line, it's like drawing an outline of something to draw a picture. So you can describe in detail using words to delineate the problem or the picture, what you are trying to describe. Depict has picked in it like picture, describe in detail, delineate, think picture. Delineation is drawing out the depiction of something with clear and precise lines, as it says in this nice meme from wordpandit.com. Discredit, basically to make a successful counter-argument. That is to prove something or someone wrong, to cause a loss of confidence in something or someone. You can think of declined credit. I saw a cartoon with a man handing his discredit card to a store clerk, and the discredit card says to the clerk, "Hey, don't believe anything this guy says." So that is a discredit card. Ha ha ha. Credo means Latin, or it is Latin for I believe. Dis means not, so to discredit someone is to cause that person to be disbelieved or not believed. And if we look at the quote to the right, a polite enemy is just as difficult to discredit as a rude friend is to protect. We've all had that one friend who is rude, doesn't have much in the way of social graces, but actually has a good point now and then, and you have to say, I know my friend is awfully rude, but really he or she has a good point, and I'm really sorry about the rudeness, but he's actually right or she's actually right. And a polite enemy, they're difficult to discredit because you can't take the lazy, easy, cheating way out and say, oh, look at this person isn't even dressed right and is rude and awful. You have to actually listen to this nice, pleasant-sounding, pleasant-looking person and say, oh, if you ignore the pretty package, basically this is a stupid, discredited argument dressed up to look nice, and here's why. And then you have to actually make a counter-argument. So it's more difficult, but it's more worthwhile when you can actually just address someone's arguments, even when the person's polite and nice, who is making those arguments. Document your evidence. Document as a verb means to prove by recorded or documentary evidence. A document, the noun, is a piece of writing, recording, or anything that can record and has recorded retrievable information. Its meaning is equivalent to the meaning of a writing in California Evidence Code Section 250, which defines a writing as handwriting, typewriting, printing, photostating, photographing, photocopying, transmitting by electronic mail or facsimile, and every other means of recording upon any tangible thing, any form of communication or representation, including letters, words, pictures, sounds, or symbols, or combinations thereof, and any record thereby created, regardless of the manner in which the record has been stored. This section of the California Evidence Code, I believe, goes back to basically the founding of California as a U.S. state, and that's roughly in the 1850s. So even judges and attorneys back then knew that they'd run into some wise guy who wouldn't produce some sort of evidence in the discovery process where you're supposed to produce the evidence you have by saying, you didn't say a writing, or you didn't say a photocopy or an oil painting. You said writing. Writing means pen on paper. And they can point back and say, no, it means any method of storing information, so produce it, and by the way, we're going to sanction you and make you pay money for disobeying the court by not producing this. Documenting is important. If you can't cite to proof of your claim, that is, if you can't show documents to prove it, your claim is very weak. If I'm arguing with you, then your argument's at best your word against mine, and at worst it's your word against my tangible evidence. If I can actually produce evidence that backs up my point of view, but you can't produce any evidence that backs up yours. Again, if this is a court case or any sort of dispute, it's really a good idea to have any kind of document, any kind of memo, anything written at the time that something was discussed. That's why merchants and attorneys and people who take things seriously always write confirming memos, emails, letters, even texts, just to say, hey, Frank, this is just to document that you said you were going to pay me back the money that I lent you today. That usually is better than not having any evidence. It might not be complete, but it's good to keep some sort of written record, so when you see Frank later, he says, I never borrowed money from you, what are you talking about? If you try to sue Frank and you don't have any evidence, you're going to lose. So that's good to document things. And on the SAT, it's good to document things because if you just make a claim and can't back it up, you're not going to get a very good grade on your essay, and you won't understand very much on the reading questions. Our elaborate plans. Elaborate as an adjective means complex, fancy, or complicated. Elaborate, the verb, means to add details. The verb form's a little more important here. We're talking about adding details. So if you say something, you want to elaborate on it because the person who's reading your essay or the person whose essays you're reading, you want to be able to say, oh, this person elaborates on the general point by adding these examples that really drive it home and make it something that I understand. If you're not elaborating, the essay grader could say, all right, you probably heard this from your teacher, but I don't really believe that you understand it very well because you didn't provide any examples, or even worse, you provided an example that really didn't fit. But to elaborate in everyday life, if I work for you and I'm late for work, you're my boss, you might say, hey, why are you late, John? If I reply, well, I couldn't get here on time, sorry, you might say, well, would you care to elaborate? Saying I couldn't get here on time just says I was late because I was late, so I'd really like some actual details as to why you were late, not just that you were late. I saw that you were late when you weren't here on time, John, so please elaborate. I endorse this message. So to endorse as a verb means to support a product, a point of view. The author of a passage on the SAT may certainly endorse some sort of viewpoint or try to discredit some sort of viewpoint and endorse the opposite of that viewpoint. You can think of it as a celebrity endorses a product when he or she advertises it on TV, as Sofia Vergara, I believe that's who that is here, is when she's acting way, way, way too excited about a can of Diet Pepsi. Exemplify and expository. To exemplify, which is a verb, is to serve as an example of. It looks kind of like example, and you can tell that it's probably over the years it was pronounced a little bit differently, then it became spelled a little bit differently, so it's probably exemplify, and then it became exemplify. So it just means to serve as an example of. Looks like example, it's easy to remember. Expository. An adjective. Have you ever heard of an expose in a newspaper when some big newspaper article, just blows the lid off? It exposes a big scandal at City Hall or something like that. Well, not all expository essays or pieces of writing are that exciting. They just explain the details of something. So an expository essay on making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches might explain the process of making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And here's how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They make the way they make it at the new downtown Oakland hotspot, the Peanut Buttery. I'm just making that up. I don't think there is such a place. But they've got a mac and cheese restaurant. I'm sure there's a peanut butter sandwich restaurant coming soon. So, that's not to be confused with a suppository, which makes its point in an entirely different manner and at the other end of your body than where the expository essay would presumably hit. So, this is not expository, it's a suppository. Ha ha ha. To illustrate is to show pictures or details. They can be literal pictures or they can be pictures that are figuratively drawn with words. Illustrated means showing pictures, as in Sports Illustrated, the sports magazine that shows all the great action shots of basketball players and hockey and football and things like that. Refute and repudiate. To refute is to discredit or to argue against an argument, to oppose it. Repudiate is the same thing. So to discredit an argument, you could repudiate it or you could refute it. Sarah Palin created what's called a neologism, which is just a fancy word that means new word, when she coined the word repudiate by accident. I imagine she was trying to say refute and repudiate at the same time, and that new word came out. That's actually a pretty neat word in my book. And then speculative. To speculate is to reason, usually on insufficient evidence, which can also be expressed as conjecture, hypothesize, surmise, assume, postulate. Basically, they're all fancy words for educated guesswork. That I've seen this, I think this is true, or as our little superhero says here, I use my powers to make clever guesses based on things that I notice and what I already know. I've seen a t-shirt that I thought was pretty funny that said, there are two kinds of people in the world. The kind of people who can make a guess from insufficient evidence, and the kind of person who, and you are supposed to make an inference and say, oh, the kind of person who can't. I get it. See, you've made a conjecture. You've speculated there. Yay! All right. I hope that this video has educated you or at least entertained you a little bit. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. If you don't like it, you can do a thumbs down. You could also leave a comment if you have any sort of positive things or you have any sort of constructive criticism. Thanks very much. Hope you're having a good day.